Hello, my name is Spencer, and I have an update video for you about Arrival Zero Earth, which is a rougelite, I don't know what the proper term is here. It's a roguelike game that takes place in Finland in the 90s. Aliens have invaded the Earth, and apparently their first stop is Finland, so the Finnish army, or militia, rather, needs to gather around and stop the alien invasion. Before we get rolling into the video, I do want to mention that I have a Patreon page, which I will link down below. It's $1. That's the only tier that there is. Nothing is paywalled. If you can pitch in $1 and support the channel, I would greatly appreciate that. In the previous video I made about the game, I had some suggestions for what could be improved, and I'm happy to say that at least some of these have been addressed. The game has removed the necessity to stand still in order for units to shoot, although some units, like the telephone pole unit, there's a meteor unit, still require you to stand still to fire. I'm split on this because I've gotten used to choosing when to stand still as part of the strategy. You can't stop for too long in one place or you'll get hit. On the other hand, there appears to be more enemies per wave and more dodging required to avoid those shots at you, the player. If the need to stand still had been kept, I don't know when you would get a shot off. I'm not bothered by the change, but it is different. Before, when you picked up an ability multiple times, it came with no benefit. Now, if you pick something up more than once, you get a reduced cooldown or an increased area of effect. You get something out of it instead of nothing like before, which is good. This is something that I wanted. The visual and auditory chaos has been dialed back. Before, when you had a lot of units doing a lot of things shooting, it became difficult to see what was happening. That's better now, although things still get visually busy when there are a lot of units shooting at the same time. The audio, I will say, is much better. It doesn't sound like the game is glitching out when there's a ton happening. Before, you would have all of your units firing, and there was a perk that you could pick up that as soon as a unit dies, it calls in like this mortar strike or air strike or whatever it was, and it got so overwhelming to look at it, and the audio was like glitching out. That is no longer the case. It's much better now. I was also asking for more visual variety. There are now new biomes, which increases that variety in the game. There's a desert biome, a wasteland, caves. I think there's one other. There's this desert that we're on, and then there's the original snow. That might actually be all of them. This is all good stuff, and it saves you from looking at the snow all of the time. New story portions have been added in the form of special buildings that appear from time to time in all the different biomes. And then you'll get a little scene where you can talk to somebody, and it provides a bit of backstory and lore, which I won't spoil, but it's nice to see, you know, a little bit of story elements. Nothing too, you know, you're not getting big cinematics or anything like that, which I wouldn't want the game to do, but it just adds a little flavor, which is nice. There are a couple more enemy types you unlock when you visit new biomes. There's a driller enemy and an airship enemy, as well as new units for you, the player, to use. There's a couple of lightning-based units and their new airstrike ability. Each unit in your group now looks different. That wasn't the case before. All of the units were like clones of each other. You couldn't tell who was who. Not that that was that important, because you have the unit cards at the bottom so you could see exactly what the makeup of your group is, but it's good that the actual models are different. The final boss is less bullet spongy than before, so it's not quite the slog to get through, although I'd still like to see, and I asked for this in the previous video, I would still like to see one other, at least, type of boss to keep things interesting. Something that has new abilities and requires you to play it a little differently than the current boss. I did and still do want some way to re-roll perks into something else. It's possible to simply avoid picking up things that you don't want, but I have accidentally picked things up sometimes. And it can lead to runs feeling a bit samey when you have all of the same active abilities every single time. So it would be nice to not have the deploy a turret active ability and instead take that and possibly re-roll it into a different active ability, and then maybe I can stack up more cooldown for the area of effect that increases my rate of fire or something like that. On top of all that stuff, there have been a host of other balance changes, like reducing the boss's health by a lot, so it doesn't feel quite as bullet spongy as before. The difficulty now scales up based on how well you're doing instead of increasing at a flat rate. So you won't as often, or maybe you shouldn't at all, get these runaway runs where you've become so strong and the enemies can't keep up and it's not challenging. The number of levels to reach the boss has also been decreased from 12 to 10. You can unlock units and abilities in any order as long as you have the points to do it. There have been a lot of updates. The game is consistently updated, which is good. There's still room for improvement, but Arrival Zero Earth is progressing very well. I'm pleased with it, and you can expect more videos about the game as its development in early access continues. Thank you for watching.